Dear viewers, this video presents you the summary or the analysis of the poem Passion, written by Charlotte Bronte, the 19th century poet. So in the earlier session, we had a discussion on the poem Before the Altar, written by Amy Lowell, which highlights an innocent devotee's submission before his goddess. In that poem, the narrative voice looks at the poor man's prayer and his faith in an objective manner. There, the poet shows us the different images of the goddess that the readers could perceive in that poem. And also, the poor devotee stands with folded hands before the altar without any offerings in his hands, but instead of bringing any crafty offerings in his hands, he declares that he has brought to offer himself, his own life, his soul, his heart, and that itself is the purity of his devotion. He makes clear first what is his condition and why he has come empty-handedly, and he has nothing to offer, but still he wants the goddess's blessings. So there, the pure devotion and the ideal devotee we saw in that poem. Now let us read this poem with the objective that to make the students listen to the recitation of the poem. It means I will go through the text by reading the lines, and also I try to analyze the lines, and it helps you to interpret, and also to some extent I can give you the translation of that poem in Kannada. So after reading of this poem, you will know how to plan to work from the examination point of view. As well, you will be able to understand the theme of the poem. As well, you can understand the attitude of the poet, and also what different themes are brought into this poem that you could understand after we listen to this narration or listen to this analysis of the poem. Then, see, in this video, what this video contains is, first I will give you the introduction of the poet, and then I analyze the poem. So there are some MCQs you can refer in your study material. With that we can understand very quickly what is there in this poem. Okay, first let us know something about the poet. Charlotte Bronte, who lived in 19th century Victorian period, she was the daughter of an Anglican clergyman of Irish origin. She spent much of her life in the company of his sisters at a small village called Haworth on the Yorkshire moors of England, and lived in utter poverty. This poet lived with her sisters in brother's house on brother's earnings, and that's why they were confined to the family. They were confined to within the four walls, and that's why she couldn't express her romantic tendencies through her own mouth. And that's why in this poem she has made use of a soldier to express her romantic tendencies. In the period in the 19th century Victorian period, they were well known as the Bronte Sisters, and there were three sisters, Emily Bronte and Annie Bronte and Charlotte Bronte. The other two sisters died earlier, and she was the last to die, and she was well known in English literature for her novels, and also her sisters, especially Emily Bronte was well known for her Wuthering Heights, the novel best read, widely read novel Wuthering Heights in England. So they lived in utter poverty, and that's why they were confined within the four walls, and they had fantastic ideas in their mind, and they used to write, but they were not published. When she wanted to publish her works, first she went to some publishers to get her works published, but some of the publishers rejected her first novel, The Professor. Then her famous novel, Jane Eyre, was published, and it became famous. So that brought her a greater success in her life. And when she got that best outcome and success, she stopped writing poetry, and she spent a lot of her time in writing novels. But she also wrote so many novels, so many poems, and among them Pilot Wife's Dream, Faith and Despondency, Reminiscence, Mementos, Stars, Remembrances, The Death Scene, Anticipation, Prisoner. It remained a fragment. Lastly she started to write it and wrote it and it remained incomplete. So it is a fragment. Then she became a prolific poet. Her poetry was something different from others because she wrote long narrative poems and dramatic monologues. She gave up writing poetry after the success of her novel Jane Eyre, as I said. But actually she was very good at writing poetry. If she had continued to write poems, she would have become the best known poet in the Victorian period. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತನಕ ಪೋಯಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಈ ಚಾರ್ಲಟ್ ಬ್ರಾಂಟೆ ವಿಕ್ಟೋರಿಯನ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಳು ಇದ್ದವಳು, 1860 to 1855 ಅವರ ಲೈಫ್ ಟೈಮು. ಅವಳೊಬ್ಬ ಆಂಗ್ಲಿಕನ್ ಕ್ಲರ್ಜಿಮನ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಗಳು. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಚಾರ್ಲಟ್ ಬ್ರಾಂಟೆ ಇವರು 3 ಜನ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸು. ಈ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಲಿಟ್ರರಿ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಬ್ರಾಂಟೆ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಇವರು ಫೇಮಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ 3 ಜನ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಳು ಒಬ್ಬಳು, ಎಮಿಲಿ ಬ್ರಾಂಟೆ ಅಂತ ಒಬ್ಬಳು, ಆ್ಯನಿ ಬ್ರಾಂಟೆ ಅಂತ ಒಬ್ಬಳು, ಇವಳು ಚಾರ್ಲಟ್ ಬ್ರಾಂಟೆ. ಆದರೆ ಅವರಿಬ್ಬರು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬೇಗ ತೀರಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಇವಳು ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಸಾಯ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಸಿ ಲಿವ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಲಾಂಗರ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಇವಳು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಫೇಮಸ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದು ಇವಳ ನಾವೆಲ್ಗಳಿಗಾಗಿ. ಅವಳು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದಾಗಿದ್ದೆ ಅವಳ ನಾವೆಲ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ. ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ಅವಳೊಬ್ಬ ಪಬ್ಲಿಷರ್ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗಿ ತನ್ನ ನಾವೆಲ್ ದ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲನ್ನು ಪಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. ಆಗ ಆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಷರು ಅವಳ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವೆಲ್ನ ರಿಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಆವಾಗ ಸಿ ವಾಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಡಿಸಪಾಯಿಂಟೆಡ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ರಿಜೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲು ಭಾಳ ಆಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ನಿಂದ ಅವಳು ಪಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಂತ ಹೋಗಿದ್ಲು, ಆದರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಪಬ್ಲಿಷರ್ ರಿಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇವಳ ಜೇನ್ ಐರ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ನಾವೆಲ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆದರೆ ಆ ಜೇನ್ ಐರ್ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲು ಅವಳ ನಿರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮೀರಿ ಸಕ್ಸಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಫೇಮಸ್ ಆದಂಥ ನಾವೆಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆವಾಗ ಅವಳು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಪೊಯೆಟ್ರಿನೂ ಕೂಡ ಹೆಚ್ಚೆಚ್ಚು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾಳೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಕವಿತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಹೆಚ್ಚೆಚ್ಚು ಬರಿತಾ ಇರ್ತಾಳೆ. ಆದರೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಜೇನ್ ಐರ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲು ತುಂಬ ಫೇಮಸ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತೋ ಆಗ ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಬರೆಯೋದನ್ನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಬರೀ ನಾವೆಲ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಬರೆಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಳೆ. ಬೈ ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಅವಳು ಪೊಯೆಟ್ರಿಯನ್ನು ಬರೆಯೋದನ್ನು ಮುಂದುವರಿಸಿದ್ರೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ಆಗಿ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಬಹುಶಃ ಈ ವಿಕ್ಟೋರಿಯನ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡಲ್ಲಿ, ಟೆನಿಸನ್ಸ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡಲ್ಲಿ ಅವಳು ದೇ ವುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬೀನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ರ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪೊಯೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಸಿ ಇವಳು ಈ ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟಾಗಿ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಬರೀತಿದ್ಲು ಅಂದರೆ, ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೊಯೆಟ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಸಣ್ಣ ಸಣ್ಣ ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಬರೆಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು 10 ಲೈನು 15 ಲೈನು 20 ಲೈನುಗಳ ಪೊಯಮನ್ನು ಬರೆಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇವಳು ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳು ತುಂಬಾ ಲಾಂಗ್ ನೆರೇಟಿವ್ ಪೊಯಮ್ಸು, ಅಂದರೆ ಹಂಡ್ರೆಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿದಂಥ ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳು, ಮತ್ತು ಡ್ರಾಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಮೊನೊಲಾಗ್ಸ್, ಈ ಸ್ಟೈಲಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಳು ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಬರೀತಾಳೆ. ಅಂಥ ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಪೊಯಮ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಇನ್ ಹರ್ ಓನ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ದೇ ಕೇಮ್ ಔಟ್. ಅಂಥವುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ, ಪೈಲಟ್ಸ್ ವೈಫ್ಸ್ ಡ್ರೀಮ್ ಅಂತ, ಅದು ಒಂದು ಲಾಂಗರ್ ಪೊಯಮೆ. ಫೇತ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡೆನ್ಸಿ ಅಂತ, ರೆಮಿನಿಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ, ಅಂದರೆ ಮೊಮೆಂಟೋಸ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪೊಯಮು, ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪೊಯಮು, ರಿಮೆಂಬ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪೊಯಮು, ದ ಡೆತ್ ಸೀನ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪೊಯಮು, ಆ್ಯಂಟಿಸಿಪೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪೊಯಮು, ಪ್ರಿಸನರ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಬರಿತಾ ಇರ್ತಾಳೆ, ಆದರೆ ಅದು ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್, ಅದು ಪೂರ್ಣಗೊಳಿಸೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಅದೊಂದು ಫ್ರ್ಯಾಗ್ಮೆಂಟಾಗಿ ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವಿತ್ ದಿಸ್ ಮಚ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಬ್ರೀಫಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪೊಯೆಟ್, ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆನ್ ಟು ಹರ್ ಪೊಯಮ್ ಪ್ಯಾಷನ್. ಈ ಪ್ಯಾಷನ್ನ ಪೊಯಮ್ಮು what kind of theme this passion poem has? Let us see. Here there is a soldier speaker in the poem. He speaks out how he lives for love, how he is so pure with his love towards his beloved, and at the same time, for the sake of love, how he is ready to sacrifice his own life. And there we can see very important themes like patriotism, nationalism, the theme of sacrifice. So all these are very much expressed in this poem. Though it is a love poem, but it gives us certain themes which are sublime in their status. They are sublime in their content. Such themes are also there in this poem. It is left to the reader to interpret the poem in that way. See, this passion poem highlights poet's romantic tendencies and speaks of her ideas on love. This poem records a soldier's love for his girl. He makes his position clear in the context of his profession, which takes him to different countries. He craves for her love, explaining his adventure and achievements. An English soldier is pleading before his girl to accept his deep love for her. So, as we go on reading the text of the poem, we can understand the poem better as well we can also know the lines, or the lines will become familiar to us. That helps us to identify the lines while we annotate in the examination, and that's why I go by the text, line by line I go by text. See, the first stanza, all the stanzas are of 4 lines. The first stanza: some have won a wild delight by daring wilder sorrow. Could I gain thy love tonight, I would hazard death tomorrow. So let us understand these lines. See how he is prepared to die for love, how he is prepared to embrace even the sorrow or the tragic end of his life for the sake of love. And he says, if one has to win delight in one's life, one should be prepared to embrace sorrow. So he thinks if he could gain his beloved's love that night itself by embracing death tomorrow, he is ready to face that death. If he is supposed to have that love tonight, if with the condition that he is going to die tomorrow, he is ready to die tomorrow if he gets that love today. Means he never bothers about death, but he bothers about his love, pure love to his girl. ಈ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಸ್ಟಾಂಜಾದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಏನಂದರೆ, ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸಂತೋಷ ಪಡಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸಂತೋಷದ ಹಿಂದೆ ಎಂಥ ನೋವನ್ನಾದರೂ ನಾವು ಅಪ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಎಂಥ ದುಃಖನ ಅಥವಾ ಎಂಥ ನೋವನ್ನಾದರೂ ಅಪ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ರೆಡಿ ಇರ್ಬೇಕಂತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, ನನಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ರಾತ್ರಿ ಅಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಲವ್ ಅಂದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಯತಮೆ ನನಗೆ ಒಲ್ದು ಬರ್ತಾಳೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಾದರೆ, ಅವಳು ನನಗೆ ದಕ್ತಾಳೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಾದರೆ, ವಿತ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ನಾಳೆ ನೀನು ಸಾಯ್ತೀನಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ನಲ್ಲೂ ದಕ್ತಾಳೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಾದರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಸಾಕು, ನಾನು ನಾಳೆ ಸಾಯಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ರೆಡಿ ಅಂತಾನೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಲವ್ಗಾಗಿ ಎಂಥ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಸ್ಯಾಕ್ರಿಫೈಸು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬೀನ್ expressed by that soldier. Then the next stanza, could the battle struggle earn one kind glance from thine eye? How this withering heart would burn the heady fight to try. So here, for one glance of love, see, could the battle struggle earn one kind glance from thine eye? See, for one glance of love, he is ready to burn his heart. A king wages a war to capture a kingdom, but the lover soldier gets ready to battle and struggle just for a glance from his beloved's eyes. For that he is ready to burn his heart. See, this is how he values that love. So in this second stanza, ಅವನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, ನನಗೆ ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಗ್ಲಾನ್ಸ್ ದಕ್ಕುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೂ ಸಾಕು, ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಗ್ಲಾನ್ಸ್, ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ನೋಟ, ಕುಡಿ ನೋಟ ನನಗೆ ದಕ್ಕುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೂ ಸಾಕು, ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಹೃದಯವನ್ನೇ ಸುಟ್ಟು ಹಾಕೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ನನ್ನ ಹೃದಯವನ್ನೇ ಬಗೆದು ಹಾಕೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ತಯಾರು. ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ರಾಜ ಒಂದು ಯುದ್ಧನ ಸಾರಿದರೆ ಅವನು ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಸಾರ್ತಾನೆ? ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಕಿಂಗ್ಡಮನ್ನು ಕಬಳಿಸೋಕ್ಕೆ, ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಚರ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನು ಯುದ್ಧ ಸಾರ್ತಾನೆ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಲವರ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಯಾಕ್ರಿಫೈಸಿಯಲ್ ನೇಚರ್ ಅವನಿಗೆ, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಂಬೆಡೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಹಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಸನಾಲಿಟಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಗ್ಲಾನ್ಸ್ಗಾಗಿ, ಒಂದು ಕುಡಿನೋಟಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ತನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಯತಮೆಯ ಒಂದು ಕುಡಿನೋಟಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಇವನು ತನ್ನ ಹೃದಯವನ್ನೇ ಬರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಹೃದಯವನ್ನೇ ಬಗೆದು ಹಾಕೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನು ತಯಾರಿದ್ದಾನಂತೆ. ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಮೂವ್ ಆನ್ ಟು ದ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಜಾ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ನೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಬ್ರೋಕನ್ ಸ್ಲೀಪ್ and days of carnage cold, could I deem that thou wouldst weep to hear my perils told. See the third stanza. Here, life of sleepless nights is his destiny. Being a soldier, it is his destiny that he has to spend the life of sleepless nights. So, he spends innumerable nights without sleep. He also spends the days uncountable in the open field of pricking cold, where some people die of cold. He thinks and believes that his beloved would surely weep, getting the news of his death either in the war or in the carnage cold, deadly cold. If she gets that news from the war field that her lover is no more because due to his fighting in the war or due to that carnage cold he is no more, if that news is received by her, she should really cry if she is really loving him with pure heart. ಅಂದರೆ ಇವನು ಅನ್ಕೊಂತಾನೆ, ನಾನು ದಿನನಿತ್ಯ ನಿದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲದ ದಿನಗಳನ್ನು, ನೈಟ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಕಳೀತೀನಿ, ಇನ್ಯೂಮರಬಲ್ ನೈಟ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಕಳೀತೀನಿ. ಮತ್ತು ನಾನು ಅನ್ಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಡೇಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಓಪನ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಿಕ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಕೋಲ್ಡ್, ಕೊರೆಯುವ ಚಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕಳೀತೀನಿ. ಎಂಥ ಚಳಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನ ಆ ಕೋಲ್ಡ್ನಿಂದನೇ ಕೊನೆ ಉಸಿರು ಎಳೆದು ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಂತಹ ಚಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕಳೀತೀನಿ. ಮತ್ತು ಅವನು ಯೋಚಿಸ್ತಾನೆ ಮತ್ತು ಹೀಗೆ ಅಂದ್ಕೋತಾನೆ, ನಂಬ್ತಾನೆ. ಏನಂತ ಅಂದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಬಿಲವೆಡ್, ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಯತಮೆ ವುಡ್ ಶ್ಯೂರ್ಲಿ ವೀಪ್. ನನಗೆ ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ ಇದೆ, ಅವಳು ನಿಜವಾಗೂ ಕಣ್ಣೀರು ಹಾಕ್ತಾಳೆ, ಗೋಳಾಡ್ತಾಳೆ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಅವಳಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಸಾವಿನ ಸುದ್ದಿ, ನಾನು ಹೋರಾಡ್ತಾ ಜೀವ ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಅಂತನೋ ಅಥವಾ ಈ ಕೊರೆಯುವ ಚಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಜೀವ ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಅಂತನೋ ನನ್ನ ಸಾವಿನ ಸುದ್ದಿ ಅವಳಿಗೆ ರೀಚ್ ಆದರೆ, ನೋ ಡೌಟ್ ಶಿ ವಿಲ್ ಶ್ಯೂರ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರೈ ಫಾರ್ ಮೈ ಲಾಸ್, ಫಾರ್ ಮೈ ಡೆತ್ ಅಂತ ನಂಬ್ತಾನೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಶುದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಅವಳು ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರೀತಿಸ್ತಾಳೆ, ನಾನು ಅವಳನ್ನ ಅಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಶುದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಪ್ರೀತಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ದೆನ್ he moves on to the let us move on to the next stanza. Tell me, if with wandering bands I roam full far away, wilt thou to those distant lands in spirit ever stray? Here he thinks whether his love leaves him away, because soldier wants to know from his beloved that he wants to know from his beloved that it is his duty to travel from country to country, because a soldier never remains at one place. As the order is given to them, they will have to move from one place to another, so that his duty is so that he travels from one country to another. As he goes to the distant lands, whether his beloved would also follow him, or whether his beloved's love also follows him wherever he goes. At least her spirit of love, whether it follows him wherever he goes, whether follows him to the distant lands. Pure love never gets detached just with physical distance. Pure love never gets detached just with physical distance. As the physical distance increases, pure love becomes stronger and stronger. So that is the nature of pure love. That is the nature of perfect love. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಹಿ ಸೇಸ್ ಹಿಯರ್. ಅವನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, ನನ್ನ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ನ ಬದುಕೇ ಅಂಥದ್ದು. ಏನಂದರೆ, ನಾನು ದೇಶದಿಂದ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ತಿರುಗ್ತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ನಾನು ಅಷ್ಟು ದೂರೆಲ್ಲ ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಲ್ಲ, ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಯತಮೆ ನನ್ನಿಂದ ದೂರ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ನಾನು ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀನೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಯತಮೆಯ ಪ್ರೀತಿ ನಾನು ಹುಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರಬಲ್ದ, ಅಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಶುದ್ಧವಾದ ಪ್ರೀತಿನ ಇದು ಅಂತ ತಾನು ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ. ದೆನ್ ವೈಲ್ಡ್ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟ್ರಂಪೆಟ್ ಸೌಂಡ್ಸ್ afar, wild long a trumpet sounds afar, bid me go, where Sheikh and Britain meet in war, on Indian Satluja's flow, blood has dyed the Satluja's waves with scarlet stain. I know Indus borders yawn with graves, yet command me go. See, there is a call for war with a bloody sight ahead, with a bloody sight in front of him. What is that? A very terrible and long running war is waged that gives a call with its trumpet sounds from far off lands. So it is his duty to go with no minute to be spent. So immediately when that call comes to him, he has to prepare and go without any minute to be spent. That war happens between the two forces. One is the force of the Muslims and another is the force of the British. That war happens on the bank of the river, that is Indian river, Satluj. That war has already dyed the whole water of the river to be bloody. The whole water flowing in the river has turned its color from white to the red color. As a result, the Indus border has turned to be a graveyard with the thousands of graves yawning day and night. So the whole area there on the bank of the river Satluj has become completely a graveyard because it is filled with the thousands of graves where the thousands of soldiers have been killed already, and those thousands of graves have been yawning day and night. Yet he is commanded to move over there. He knows the fact that already that Satluj war has taken thousands of soldiers as victims, but still when there is a call for him, he has to move without a second thought. So he cannot deny it. Without a second thought, he has to move. The soldier presents his life in danger to his beloved. So he presents his life, which is life in danger, because every soldier lives the last day of his life. Every soldier on every day lives his last day, because he himself doesn't know whether he will be alive tomorrow or not. So in these two stanzas, there is a call for war with a bloody sight. ಅಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಯುದ್ಧದ ಕರೆ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಯುದ್ಧದ ಕರೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಕಣ್ಣೆದುರಿಗೆ ರಕ್ತಪಾತವಾಗಿ ಹೋಗಿರುವ ಯುದ್ಧದ ಸೀನು ಕಣ್ಣೆದುರಿಗೆ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆದರೂ ಅವನು ಹೋಗಲೇಬೇಕು. ಎಂಥ ರಕ್ತಪಾತ ಅಂದರೆ, ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ವಾರು ನಡೆದಿದೆ. ಆ ವಾರಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಂಪೆಟ್ ಸೌಂಡು ಇವರಿಗೆ ಯುದ್ಧದ ಕೂಗನ್ನು ಕಳಿಸಿದೆ, ಯುದ್ಧದ ಕರೆಯನ್ನು ಕಳಿಸಿದೆ. ಆ ಕರೆಗೆ ಹೋಗೊಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷವೂ ಕೂಡ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡದೆ ಕಳೆಯದೆ ಇವನು ಯುದ್ಧಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಲೇಬೇಕು. ಅದು ಯಾವ ಯುದ್ಧ ಅಂದರೆ, ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಸಟ್ಲೇಜ್ ರಿವರ್ನ ದಂಡೆಯ ಮೇಲೆ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಫೋರ್ಸಿನ ನಡುವೆ ನಡೀತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಯುದ್ಧ. ಇವನು ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಪಡೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇವನೊಬ್ಬ ಸೋಲ್ಜರಾಗಿ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಅಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗಾಗಲೇ ಆ ವಾರು, ಆ ಸಟ್ಲೇಜ್ ನದಿ ದಂಡೆಯ ಮೇಲೆ ನಡೀತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವಾರು ಇಡೀ ಸಟ್ಲೇಜ್ ನದಿಯ ನೀರನ್ನೇ ಕೆಂಪಾಗಿಸಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸಾವು ನೋವುಗಳಾಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟದವು. ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಎರಡೂ ಕಡೆಯ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಸತ್ತೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಯುದ್ಧದಲ್ಲಿ ಮರಣವನ್ನಪ್ಪಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರ ರಕ್ತದಿಂದ ಇಡೀ ಸತ್ಲೇಜ್ ನದಿಯ ನೀರೇ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಬ್ಲಡಿಯಾಗಿ ಹೋಗಿದೆ, ರಕ್ತದಿಂದ ರಕ್ತಸಿಕ್ತವಾಗಿದೆ, ಕೆಂಪಾಗಿ ಹೋಗಿದೆ. ಅನಂತರ ಆ ನದಿಯ ದಂಡೆಯ ಇಡೀ ಏರಿಯಾ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾವಿರ ಸಾವಿರ ಗೋರಿಗಳು, ಸಾವಿರ ಹೆಣಗಳನ್ನು ಹುಗಿದು ಸಾವಿರ ಆ ಗ್ರೇವ್ಯಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಯಾನಿಂಗ್ ಆಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾವಂತೆ ಡೇ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ನೈಟ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಅಂಥ ಒಂದು ಭಯಾನಕವಾದ ಒಂದು ಸಿಚುವೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿಯಾಗಿದೆ. ಆದರೂ ಇವನಿಗೆ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಕರೆ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟತಿ ಯುದ್ಧಕ್ಕೆ. ಇವನದನ್ನು ತಿರಸ್ಕರಿಸೋಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ನ ಬದುಕೇ ಅದು, ಇವನು ಅದನ್ನು ತಿರಸ್ಕರಿಸೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಅಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅಪಾಯಕಾರಿ, ಅಂಥ ಒಂದು ಡೇಂಜರಸ್ ಲೈಫನ್ನು ಇವನು ತನ್ನ ಬಿಲವೆಡ್ಗೆ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ನನ್ನ ಜೀವನ ಅಂದರೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ ನೋಡು, ಇಷ್ಟಾದರೂ ನೀನು ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಪ್ರೀತಿಸ್ತೀಯ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರೀತಿಸ್ತೀಯ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳೋಕ್ಕೆ. Though rank and high the holocaust of nations streams to heaven, glad I would join the death-doomed host, were but the mandate given. See here, holocaust streams to heaven. What holocaust it is? It is the mass death in mass. The mass murders on both the sides means in the war only the soldiers of one side do not die. The soldiers of both the sides will lose their lives. There will be killings on both the sides. So that holocaust means the mass deaths will be seen in any war, and that mass death will be sent through the steam to the heaven. The deaths in mass of nations that participate in war reach the heaven through steams resulted in the heat of the war. See, in the heat of the war, their steam rises, and through that steam, that holocaust is reaching the heaven. It is known in advance, but it is a mandate to him. And this holocaust is an expected one. It is the fact that is known in advance to every soldier, but it is a mandate, it is compulsory for every soldier to go to participate in the war wherever and whenever the call for war is given to the soldier to fight in the war. If he dies there, he would go to heaven. And this is how every soldier thinks. If I remain alive, I will come back and live with my kids and kins. If I don't remain alive after the war, it is sure that he is reaching the heaven. So with this concept, every soldier fights in the war. So here there are many more stanzas. So I will read those stanzas and interpret them in the next video. And here we can complete this video by going through other slides. Let us see. Here the fighting, the willingness to accept that fighting is compulsory for every soldier, though the thousands of soldiers are killed in the wars. And that's very, very natural for every soldier. That is very inevitable for every soldier to participate in a war, though he knows that there is Holocaust. And that is, here he tells her that he sees his success in her tender eyes. Later in the later stanzas, we can see how she expects him to come back, and how that soldier stands here as a symbol of nationalism, symbol of patriotism, and symbol of sacrifice. and that we can understand in the later part of the poem. So with this much, let us complete this presentation. Thank you.